In the heart of a valley that would one day be called Silicon, a young man named Steve walked with bare feet and a mind that raced far ahead of the world around him. He saw the future not in grand pronouncements, but in the quiet hum of a perfectly crafted machine. His friend, another Steve they called Woz, was a different kind of dreamer. Where Jobs saw the horizon, Wozniak saw the intricate dance of circuits and code. He was a wizard of the wire, a poet of the processor. Together, they were a symphony of ideas. Jobs, with his relentless drive, would push Wozniak's gentle genius to its limits. "What if," Jobs would ask, his eyes alight with a fiery intensity, "we could put a computer in the hands of everyone?" And so, in a garage filled with the scent of solder and ambition, the first Apple was born. It was a humble creation, a single circuit board, but to them, it was everything. It was the first note in an anthem that would change the world. But a beautiful machine is just a machine until it finds its purpose. Jobs knew this. He took their creation to a local computer store, a place called the Byte Shop. The owner was skeptical. "Just a board?" he scoffed. "People want a complete computer." Jobs, ever the persuader, saw not a rejection, but an opportunity. "We'll build them," he promised, with a confidence that bordered on audacity. 50 of them, fully assembled. The store owner, intrigued by this young man's conviction, agreed. The promise was made, but the reality was daunting. They had no money, no parts, and a deadline that loomed like a storm cloud. They begged, they borrowed, they called in favors from friends and family. The garage became a makeshift factory. Steve's sister Patty and his friend Dan joined the assembly line. They worked day and night, fueled by cheap takeout and the electric thrill of creation. Finally, the day came. They delivered the 50 computers to the Byte Shop. The store owner was impressed. They were paid, and for the first time, their dream had a tangible value. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. With the money from that first sale, they weren't just two guys in a garage anymore. They were a company. They were Apple, and this was only the beginning. The world, though it didn't know it yet, was about to change forever. The garage was quiet now, the scent of solder replaced by the clean smell of success. 50 computers sold was a victory, but for Steve Jobs, it was a single sentence in a story he was still writing. He knew a circuit board, however brilliant, was not the revolution. The revolution would be a computer that felt like an extension of the mind, as simple and elegant as a stone polished by the river. A vision that grand required more than passion. It required capital. The search led them to Mike Markula, a man who had retired in his early 30s from the semiconductor world. In a sterile corporate office that felt a world away from their garage, Steve pitched his dream. He didn't just talk about circuits. He spoke of changing the way people worked, learned, and created. Markula saw the fire in Jobs' eyes and the quiet genius in Wozniak's schematics. He invested $250,000. On January 3, 1977, Apple Computer Inc. was officially born. They weren't just two Steves in a garage anymore. They were a corporation with a mission. With funding secured, the dream machine began to take shape. Wozniak, in a feat of engineering wizardry, designed a board that could produce brilliant color graphics. But Jobs obsessed over the outside. "It can't be a metal box," he insisted. "It has to be friendly. It has to look good in someone's home." Jobs found a designer and demanded a case made of sleek, molded plastic, a friendly beige that felt more like a home appliance than a piece of industrial equipment. He ran his hands over the smooth curves of the prototype, feeling not just a computer, but the future of personal technology. A new machine needed a new symbol. Jobs hired an art director, Rob Janoff, with a simple brief: "Don't make it cute." The result was an apple with a bite taken out of it, rendered in a spectrum of vibrant rainbow stripes to celebrate the computer's color capabilities. It was simple, iconic, and instantly recognizable. The stage was set for their debut, the 1977 West Coast Computer Fair. While other companies had card tables and hand-drawn signs, Apple arrived with a professionally designed backlit plexiglass booth. Jobs knew that perception was reality. They had to look like the future, not just another hobbyist's toy. When the doors opened, the crowd was mesmerized. In a sea of clunky metal boxes and monochrome screens, the Apple II was a revelation. Its color, its design, its silence, it was different. Jobs, the ultimate showman, demonstrated its power, captivating onlookers with the sheer possibility it represented. The fair was a triumph. Orders flooded in. The Apple II became a phenomenon, the machine that would launch the personal computer revolution and carry the company to astonishing heights. They moved out of the garage for good, into a real building on Bandley Drive in Cupertino. Apple was a success. The company was growing faster than anyone could have imagined. But for Steve Jobs, standing in his new office, the Apple II was already the past. He looked out the window, not at the valley below, but at a future no one else could see. A future with a new kind of machine, one that would once again change everything. By 1980, Apple was a public company, a titan of the new industry it had created. The Apple II had sold over 1 million units. The garage was a myth, replaced by a sprawling campus. But for Steve Jobs, success was a cage. He watched the company he co-founded become a bureaucracy, a real company run by committees. He was chairman of the board, a figurehead. His new obsession was a project codenamed Lisa, a machine he intended to be the next leap forward. The future revealed itself not in an Apple lab, but at Xerox's Palo Alto Research Center, PARC. In a demonstration that would become legend, Jobs was shown a graphical user interface, GUI, where a user could click on icons with a mouse. It was a moment of pure, blinding revelation. He saw, in an instant, that every computer would work this way. He had seen the future, and he was furious that Xerox didn't realize what they had. He returned to Apple a man possessed, a prophet with a new gospel. He tried to force his newfound vision onto the Lisa team, demanding they scrap their work and adopt the GUI. But the team, protective of their project and wary of his manic intensity, resisted. The corporate structure he now loathed pushed back. In a stunning move, Apple's president, Mike Scott, formally removed Jobs from the Lisa project. He was cast out, humiliated but undeterred. Jobs began looking for a new kingdom. He found it in a small skunkworks project started by an engineer named Jeff Raskin. Raskin envisioned a simple, affordable information appliance for the masses. He called it the Macintosh. Jobs saw something different, a canvas for his masterpiece. This would be his machine, built his way. He quietly and ruthlessly took control of the project. The Macintosh team became his personal army, his band of pirates against the navy of the rest of Apple. He moved them to their own building, hoisting a pirate flag with a rainbow Apple logo for an eye patch. He pushed them relentlessly, demanding artistic perfection in every line of code and every curve of the plastic. It's better to be a pirate than join the Navy, he told them. They were not just building a computer, they were making art. But even pirates need a captain. Mike Markula, ever the pragmatist, knew the company needed a seasoned CEO to manage its explosive growth. He and Jobs began a search for a leader, someone who could bring order to the creative chaos. Their target was John Sculley, the marketing genius who had made Pepsi a global powerhouse in the Cola Wars. Sculley was hesitant to leave the security and prestige of PepsiCo. The courtship went on for months. Finally, during a late-night meeting on a New York balcony, Jobs leveled his final, devastating question. He looked Sculley in the eye and asked, "Do you want to sell sugared water for the rest of your life? Or do you want to come with me and change the world?" Sculley was speechless. He knew he had to say yes. With Sculley installed as CEO, Jobs focused on the Macintosh launch. It was a masterpiece of theater, culminating in a Super Bowl commercial directed by Ridley Scott. The 1984 ad depicted a lone heroine shattering a screen broadcasting the face of Big Brother. It didn't show the computer, but it sold the revolution. At the shareholders' meeting, Jobs, in a bow tie, pulled the Macintosh from a bag. It spoke for itself. "Hello, I am Macintosh." The crowd erupted. The launch was a triumph of marketing, but reality soon set in. The Macintosh was beautiful, but it was underpowered, had little software, and was expensive. Sales were a fraction of projections. The tension that had been simmering between Jobs' vision and Sculley's pragmatism boiled over. The two men, once allies, were now locked in a power struggle for the soul of the company. The battle came to a head in the spring of 1985. Scully, backed by the board of directors, made his move. In a boardroom coup, he stripped Jobs of all operational responsibilities. Steve Jobs, the visionary co-founder, the Pirate King, was exiled. He was left with an empty office and the title of chairman, a king with no kingdom. At 30 years old, the man who had built Apple was out.